Hey everybody, Pete from Pete's S10 page here, and I am going to tackle something that seems to get a lot of people's feathers all ruffled. And I made the mistake of posting a Cyclone the other day that somebody had LS swapped. It was at the Carlisle truck show. It was a beautiful truck. It was a gorgeous truck, and I made a point to let everyone know that I thought it was a gorgeous truck because it was. Um, Got a lot of comments and even a little bit of hate mail from everybody about the fact that I seem to be glorifying or justifying somebody swapping a Cyclone or Typhoon. Now, first off, I don't post a lot about Cyclones and Typhoons because I'm honestly not the expert at them. There's a lot of people that know a lot more about them than I do, and I generally don't try to sound like the absolute authority on them because I'm not. Um, I know a fair amount about them, but the guys from ISTR, the International Cyclone and Typhoon Registry, are the real experts on it. Every single vehicle is well documented, and our friends at SportMachines.net are equally well versed in it, and they are who I go to when I have questions about the trucks. But I suppose this is more of a philosophical question. Now, bear with me here, and I will explain how I feel about it. There are a lot of cyclones and typhoons out there that are long neglected. There's a lot of them falling apart, rusting away. A lot of them don't even have the engines in them. And every now and then you see them come up for sale, and they're rollers. And on the same note, there's a lot of guys that bought them brand new, have babied them, have taken care of them, and a lot of them have extremely low miles and are very original. Um, those low mileage cream puffs should stay low mileage cream puffs. They're 30 years old. I think if somebody has managed to preserve them this long, then yeah, I would have a problem with somebody making major modifications to them. Um, there's a lot of ones that have V6s in them that are fairly molested. Some have been done very well for purposes of racing and things like that and performance, and are well maintained. I don't have a problem with that. And there's a lot of them that have just been hatcheted up and not well taken care of. And like I said, there's a lot of those ones that have been dusted off and don't have original engines. So where do we draw the line? Well, I would rather see somebody fix one up that's been neglected, maybe sitting for years without an engine somewhere. I'd rather see it be enjoyed with an LS swap than continuing to rust in some barn field somewhere. Um, so yeah, I used to be totally opposed to LS swaps altogether in Cyclones and Typhoons because it's such an important, significant truck and honestly a very valuable truck. So why would you want to mess up the value of a truck? Well, if somebody buys one that's already beat down, it's missing an engine, it's missing some cladding, it has some rust, and somebody wants to bring it back to glory, and they don't have the original engine, I don't have a problem with them putting an LS motor in it. They're enjoying it. It's seeing the road again. That's far better than letting it sit and rot. I think what really changed my mind is about 5, 6 years ago when I met Tom Joy. If you don't know who Tom Joy is, I'm sure you've seen the viral video of him at the half mile totally dusting a Hellcat with his Cyclone, which I believe is in excess of 800 horsepower. And he wasn't just one of the first people to LS swap a Cyclone. He was one of the first people to LS swap an S10, period. The truck is wonderfully done. The craftsmanship's out of this world. No one is ever going to dog him for the quality of the installation. And you know what? After I met Tom, I came to the realization I don't really have a problem with the Cyclone being LS swapped. Like I said, the only time I'm going to take an issue with it is if somebody's taking a low mileage or a mint condition cream puff and tearing it apart. Yeah, I'm going to draw a line there. And I'm going to say that the vast majority of them out there are fairly original. We don't even know where the majority of Cyclones are. They have a registry, but it's not like every one is accounted for. There's a lot of them. There's a guy down the road from me that has a Cyclone. I'm not very social. I can't get him to join any of the S10 groups. He doesn't really like to talk, but he has a very nice Cyclone. I see it cruising out on sunny days. Pretty much original. There's a lot of original Cyclones out there that we don't know about. I'd say most of the hopped up ones, we see. You see them at drag strips, you see them at car shows, things like that. But there's a lot of guys that have original ones sitting around. I don't think we are ruining the pool of eligible trucks by LS swapping those that need some attention. The white one that was at Carlisle, I don't even know the name of the guy that owns it. The thing was gorgeous. It's one of those beautiful S10s. It's one of my new favorites. It was white on matte white with a naturally aspirated LS motor. You know what? I don't have a problem with it. You know why? Because it's being driven, it's being enjoyed. And I would still venture to say that the truck's somewhat valuable. So I don't have a problem with it. I'm not encouraging people to go out and buy Cyclones, throw LS swaps in them. If the motor is, if the original 4.3 turbo is good, I would keep it in there myself, but I'm not going to dog on someone else for it. I just had a comment here. Why do it to such a rare machine? Well, I'm assuming you just joined the conversation, but yeah, it is rare. I'm not encouraging people to do it. But like I said, if you have one that has a blown engine, you don't have an original engine, you don't have the original parts to make that motor right, I don't have a problem with you doing it. As long, and the same goes with what I say for any S10. I don't have a problem with you doing an LS swap under one condition, is that you do it well. If you're doing a half-assed job on it, I'm going to take an issue with it, whether it's an S10 or a Syclone. So I think that goes without saying. Yeah, if it's going to be done, do it well. Do it in the original spirit of the vehicle. Obviously, if the LS motor were around in 1991, I think we might have seen a different motor in it. Who knows? Very interesting story how the 4.3 ended up turbocharged there. Originally, the original Syclone concept had the Grand National drivetrain in it, the one that was debuted at the 1989 Chicago Auto Show. Originally had a Buick motor, but by the time the Syclone was coming out, they just were winding down tooling for it, and they weren't going to continue with the 3.8 for such a small run when the 4.3 had already been engineered for the S10. That was really the way to go, and I could tell you some interesting stories, in the history before the Syclone hit the market, but that's not what this post is about. Mine is to explain why I personally do not have an issue with somebody doing an LS swap in a Syclone. Again, as long as it's done well, as long as it's done right. And I'm not a Syclone owner. I'm not a Typhoon owner. I don't even have a Sonoma GT. So I'm kind of impartial to it. A lot of the guys that run these trucks know them a lot better than I do, have their reasons for doing it. But I'm just not going to dog someone for doing it. And I know there's a lot of chatter and generally involves fights when it's in the group. So that's why I thought it would be fun to do it in a video where I can talk freely without being interrupted. And I am watching the comments so far. I only have one comment. I have a lot of people watching. Adrian, I hear those stories. I'll get to those stories sometimes, maybe in another video. I can tell you a very interesting story real quick. My uncle was a Chevrolet dealer from 1982 through 1999. And every year the dealers would have an annual meeting where every dealer in the country was flown to like Las Vegas or Hawaii. Back when Chevrolet really took good care of their dealers. And the dealers knew that they had been developing a super all-wheel drive turbocharged truck. And Chevrolet dealers assumed they were getting it. They had the Cameo out at the time, and they thought that the sport truck thing was going to continue. And since the Cameo was exclusive to Chevrolet, the Chevrolet dealers assumed they were going to get something along those lines, and they were all excited for it. And they went to the dealer meeting, which was just Chevrolet only. It wasn't Buick, Oldsmobile, GMC. It was just Chevrolet dealers. And the head of Chevrolet at the time got up in front of the dealers and announced that the all-wheel drive turbocharged truck was being awarded to GMC because GMC wanted to distinguish itself a little bit from Chevrolet, because 91 was the year where GMC really started doing some things on their own, independent of Chevrolet. They weren't identical trucks anymore. And he was telling me there was just about a mutiny when the dealers found out they weren't getting it. And GMC got it and Chevrolet didn't. And Chevrolet dealers were very upset about it because, 4 Chevrolets sell for every 1 GMC, so they didn't understand why they couldn't have it, or why at least wasn't being offered under both marks. So I always think that's an interesting story. It's more fun to hear my uncle tell me about it. And I see another comment, popping up here, but you really got to watch the whole video. Like I said, if you have a mint, nice Syclone, all stock, yeah, it would be a travesty to tear that truck apart and put an LS swap in it. But if you have something with 150,000 miles, it's been sitting for years, the engine's shot or the engine's just absent, I would sooner that vehicle be on the road being enjoyed than continuing to rust somewhere. And honestly, if somebody wants to bad enough, you can always reverse it back at a later time. But that's just how I feel about it. I don't really care. I love original trucks, but they're only original once. And if it's to the point where you're restoring it, it's just like paint, It's not going to be the original paint anyway. In this case, it wouldn't be the original engine anyway. So if you don't have the original engine, by all means, do it. Just do it well. I think I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to repeat myself, so we'll call it a video at that. But I want to thank everyone for watching. I'd be interested to see your opinions once you've watched the whole video, because if you're just jumping in and commenting based on the headline of the video, then I don't think you're going to get the whole gist of how I came to the conclusions I came to. Anyway, everybody have a good night. Drop me lots of comments. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my Instagram. Post lots of comments. And feel free to message me with any topics you'd like me to talk about. Have a good night.